Well, the wild card chases are as advertised. Pretty wild right now. Near no-hitters equal losses. And let's face it, the Angels might have to think about trading their other generational talent. This is Locked On MLB.
You are Locked On MLB. Your daily MLB podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello, baseball fans, and welcome to Locked On MLB, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. This is the daily podcast. We talk about all of Major League Baseball. I am your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully. I am an Emmy-nominated television producer who has been a baseball podcaster for well over a decade, and this is now wrapping up my 5th season here at the Locked On Podcast Network. Follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter or whatever the hell it's called now, and Instagram. I'm your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. Follow us on the YouTubes. Please subscribe and be on alert for new videos. I got a haircut today, but someone who doesn't need a haircut is my once-a-week co-host. He's right over there, looking good.
Yeah, that's because I got a haircut this weekend as well. Sully Baseball. I'm Millard Thomas, host of the Locked On Diamondbacks podcast. You can catch me on Twitter at CreatorThomas24 for the personal account. Look up Locked On Diamondbacks, both Twitter, Instagram for the podcast handle. Streaming on all podcasting platforms, of course. And please hit subscribe to Locked On Diamondbacks on YouTube.
Before we get into some of the other stuff to talk about today, one quick note in terms of games going on and games happening. The Pittsburgh Pirates, thanks to a 2-run single by Ronald Acuna Jr., who I think just clinched the National League Most Valuable Player, although Mookie Betts and Freddie Freeman could go on a rampage. They beat the Pirates 5-2. So what, Sully? So what? I'll tell you why, so what. The Braves became the first team to clinch a playoff berth. Here we are recording on September 10th, and the Atlanta Braves know that if everything goes wrong, they're going to go to the postseason as a wild card team, but I have a feeling more things will go right. They're a 93-win team. Their magic number to clinch the National League East again has been reduced to 6. And the Braves, who just look phenomenal right now. They're an organization that just has put it all together.
What's their flaw? I mean, they have the lineup, they have the bullpen, they have the rotation, they have stars at every position. I mean, what's the flaw with the Atlanta Braves?
Yeah, right now. Do you know what they are?
What are they?
They're the anti-Angels.
Oh.
They are the anti-Angels. Think about it. 2 teams with an A on their hat, with MVP candidates on their teams. One is able to go to the postseason year in and year out. No Freddie Freeman, no Dansby Swanson, no problem. Hey, we just lost Ronald Acuna for the season. Don't worry, we're going to win the World Series. The Braves are the model organization, building from the ground up, being able to sustain the loss of some superstars from their team. And year in and year out, their farm system produces enough players to either fill in all the gaps or be there to make the right trades, which brings us back to the Angels, which brings us back to Anaheim. Now, I can't sing more of that because I don't want to get us into any trouble at the Locked On Podcast Network for singing without any authorization. Copyright infringement, that's the word I'm looking for. As of this recording, the Angels are beating the Cleveland Guardians 2-1. Who knows what the end of that score is? And let's face it, who cares? That game, in the Cleveland, any hope that they would have, they're not going to win it. I mean, they kind of blew their chance when they wet the bed when they went to Minnesota. But I'll tell you right now, do you know who's not playing in the Angels game right now?
Who?
Shohei Ohtani.
Oh, no.
Do you know who's also not playing there?
Who else?
Mike Trout.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Now, Ohtani is so checked out of the Angels right now, he didn't even show up for picture day. Okay. Did you see that?
I have not.
There was a picture of a guy, kind of a tall, well-shaped dude, Caucasian, wearing a Shohei Ohtani shirt during the picture, standing like this. Clearly, so they could Photoshop Shohei Ohtani's face over the rest of them. You know you're checked out of the team when you can't even bother to show up for the photograph. I heard someone say he was hurt to be in the photograph.
He has been out the last few days, and he's on
to be in the photograph.
You know, he's dealing with that elbow injury. I don't know if he can, put his arms behind his back to stand there for the photograph.
Yeah, he's dealing with an arm injury, which is basically get me the heck out of Anaheim.
Maybe he thought he had to take the photo. That's why he couldn't show it.
Click.
Yeah.
Look at. I'm going to read a couple weeks ago. I had on John from Locked On Angels, and I basically said they blew it. The Angels blew it. They had a chance to trade Shohei Ohtani in a seller's market and to get something from him. Instead, they went for it. It failed horrifically. They had to dump all their players, which is probably was a smart thing to do. But they're going to get nothing for Shohei Ohtani. They'll get like a second or third round draft pick. And boy, oh boy, if you've been looking at how this team's been drafting and building up their farm system, do you really trust that they're going to draft the right player for this? They've had Shohei Ohtani and Mike Trout as teammates for 6 years and have 0 winning seasons in that stretch. 0.
Well, Sully, I think back in the day when Mark Teixeira did leave the Angels, I think they got a compensatory pick from that did turn into Mike Trout. So maybe this could be the start of the Angels rebuilding that whole organization. Yeah, well, when I did that episode, it got more than my normal share of listeners, and a lot of them are Angel fans who are not fans of your friend Sully. I'm going to read you a couple of things because I got a lot of angry messages on the YouTube, but I want to read a few of them, okay? Because we're going to get them mad again right now. But at the beginning of the year, I came on and I said, I'm not buying the Angels. I don't think they're going to have a winning season. And then the Halo brothers said, oh, you're just like part of the mainstream media. Now, I did make one terrible prediction. I said the A's were going to win more games. That turned out to be a bad prediction, only because the A's were so much worse than I thought they were going to be, not because the Angels are any good. Now, listen, I'm just going to address a couple of these things. I'm about to make them hate me a little more. Mike Murray, 1506, at Mike Murray 1506 says, you keep harping about Ohtani and Trout. How is this different from the Mets with Max Scherlander and Verlander, who bought the talent and failed miserably? I like that name, Max Scherlander. That's a good one.
And Angels have Ohtani want to keep him. The best chances to make a run is compete. This wasn't successful. They're fixated on the Angels and Ohtani's talent. Yeah, we're fixated on a talent we've never seen before. And this is slightly different than the Mets importing a veteran for a 1 or 2 year run. This was a person for your franchise to be built around. All right, Max Scherzer, Justin Verlander were never the long-term solutions. They're like, hey, we want to win right now. It didn't win. And you know what they did? They traded him and got something back for him.
Yeah, and they were coming off that 100-win season. So it wasn't like we were going to this season where it was like 8 years of Mets just misery, no postseason success. They were coming off a successful season and trying to build off of that. And they were all in going into this year at the very least, even though it didn't work out for them.
Mike Lipke, 9404, says this view is hindsight is 2020. No, it's not. We had many of our players injured with weird injuries too. Only the Angels have had injuries. Oh, really? Yeah. He's talking like Shohei Ohtani is the problem. Not one human being on the planet Earth said Ohtani was the problem. Trading Ohtani would have what? Created more minor leaguers? Sure, that's better than no minor leaguers. Why isn't the media busting on the Mets, the Padres, and the Yankees? First of all, this made me laugh so hard because, as we know, everyone gave the Yankees a free pass, right? Oh, wait. It was all anyone was talking about for a couple weeks. And, of course, everyone gives the Mets a free pass. Oh, wait. They never give the Mets a free pass. And the Padres. Here's the main difference. To remember when the Padres with Juan Soto and Manny Machado and Yu Darvish. Do you know when the last time they were in the playoffs? You have to go all the way back to 2022. Do you know when the last time the Yankees and Aaron Judge were in the playoffs? You have to go all the way back to 2022. You know when the last time the Mets had a 100-win season or in the postseason? You have to go all the way back to 2022. Or 8 years after the last time the Angels appeared in the postseason. Maybe that's why Mike Lipke, 9404. It's not just trading Ohtani. Blah, blah, blah. I blame stats. Yes, of course. Stats. Many owners, there's one person says, one person says, I don't like this Sully. He sounds weird. Trading Ohtani doesn't make the team any better. Would you trade a player who gives you wins as a pitcher and a hitter? No, you don't, except for the fact that he's gone. That one was from Bill Onsoon 901. He's gone. And obviously it's not a best case scenario, but the best case scenario is on a boat that is long since sailed. And so at some point you have to say, we need some team scenario. We need something. And then you saw when the Mets saw that wasn't working out with Verlander and Scherzer, they traded him. They got back a couple of decent minor leaguers for him. And I believe in what was a seller's market, the Angels could have gotten at least one blue chip prospect, which is more than they're going to get. And now we are going to be facing, after we talk a little bit from Game Time, we're going to have to be facing the fact that we have to seriously think about if it's time to trade Trout.
Yeah, and that's really the question of this segment. Should the Angels trade Trout? Real quick for the Angels fans out there, I just want you to know, Millie's been in your corner this whole time. I was pro the Angels.
How dare you?
And guess what? I don't know if Ohtani's leaving. I do think the injury.
Oh, come on.
I think the injury could have changed things with his future.
No.
Yes, I don't know. Maybe you can go back and rehab with the Angels and then hit free agency again. I don't know. I'm not convinced, Angels fans. I'll be on record. I don't know if Ohtani's leaving. He may come back on a short-term deal and then hit free agency in a couple of years and then go get that massive bag. I don't know if he wants to do it post-torn UCL. So just hold out, Angels fans. We might. Are
you suddenly an Angel fan?
We might
Rock on Diamondbacks.
We might bring Ohtani back so he can sign with the Desert Dogs in a couple more years.
God.
But let's answer the question, Sully Baseball. Whether Ohtani leaves or not in free agency, that doesn't change the question of should the Angels still trade a Mike Trout once, we get to the offseason or whatever. Because like you said, it's been basically a decade since they've been to the postseason. Mike Trout has he ever won a postseason game? He has one career postseason hit. Like there's no postseason success for Mike Trout in LA. They've never been able to build a contender around him. So it's like at this point, with what we've seen, the Angels, all their organizational failures over the past, decade, is it time for the Angels finally to move on from Mike Trout and see what they could get?
All right, folks. Hey, it's that time of year that if you're a football fan, things are looking great. If you're a baseball fan, things are looking super exciting. If you're a basketball or hockey fan, wait your turn. It's coming up in a couple of months. But I'm going to a game in Oakland this week, and I'm going to try to go to my first ever Rams game. And if the Dodgers are going deep in the playoffs, I think I may have a connection if they get to the NLCS. And the name of that connection is Gametime. Buying tickets to your favorite event shouldn't be stressful. The game should be stressful. Gametime is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, and comedy and theater near you. With killer deals on last-minute tickets and their best price guarantee, you could stop stressing over the tickets and start getting hyped for the fun that you're going to have. You get flash deals, last-minute tickets, and that's what I'm banking on for the NLCS when it inevitably is the Braves versus the Dodgers. Watch it be the Marlins versus the Brewers. You get easy to find and buy tickets for every kind of event in your area. You get images of your seat views and the lowest price guarantee, event cancellation protection, job loss protection. All of it is right there. Forget planning months in advance. Gametime has tickets going on for games right now. The Gametime guarantee means you always get the best price if you find tickets in the same section and row for less. Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference if another place has a better deal and a better seat. So the tickets are sent directly to your phone. You don't have to dig through your email. So snag the tickets without the stress with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. You like 20? Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guarantee. Sing that song again. Gametime. Let's see it. We talked about franchise players. You just told me before we did my glorious Gametime ad read that Jase Dominguez is going to have Tommy John surgery.
Potentially, yeah. He could miss most of the season, they said, next year.
Oh, my God. I mean, look, I cannot sit here and pretend to be a Yankee fan by any stretch of the imagination. But there's one thing I never want to see. I never want to see injuries. I want to see the best players on the field. And Jase Dominguez, who burst onto the scene, Aaron Judge-like, because remember, Judge burst onto the scene with a home run in his first at bat. You want to see, even if you root against the Yankees, if you root against any of these teams, you want to see their best players on the field. And that's just heartbreaking because Jase Dominguez looked like he was, who knows? He could very well still come, flying back and this may be just what he needs to do, but wow. But yeah.
Especially for the Yankees who are going through the season where it's like, this is the time. Like the Yankees at any point in the last 30 years have never had a September where it's like, you know what, let's actually call up our young guys and actually play these dudes to see who could be the pillars of our next foundation, right? And this would have been the perfect opportunity to see your top prospects. They've been calling them up. Austin Wells, you got your Volpes out there. And Dominguez could be another guy just getting that early opportunity on the MLB level. Now he's going to potentially miss most of next season.
It's really sad. I'm going to give you my answer on the Mike Trout question.
Oh, yeah.
I say no.
Oh.
I say no for this reason. He signed a contract that is going to have him playing for the Angels until the heat death of the universe. It's a long-term. He has a very long-term deal, and that's a deal that is basically his contract status has him signed through 2030.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, he's there for a long time.
And
he's like the second highest paid player annually too.
Yeah. And yeah, this isn't all out of the goodness of his heart. They're paying.
He's getting his bag now here.
Yeah. His great grandkids can go to law school if they get in. However, and I'm as big a Mike Trout fan who is not an Angel fan as you're going to meet. I love watching Mike Trout. I've gone to many games at Anaheim to watch him play. I think he's fabulous. He hasn't played 140 games in a year since 2018. He played 134 games in 2019, throw COVID out the window. He played 36 games in 2021. He played 119 games last year. He's played 82 games this year. And when he's on the field, he is still a breathtaking talent. However, he is shown, and someone will try to convince me that I'm not correct in saying this, he's injury prone now.
Yeah, the last few years for sure. I think he's only played like 120 games at most in like one season last year.
Right. And again, his value is you will get – I think you could have got a quality young building block for Ohtani, especially because it was a seller's market. I don't think you would have gotten a haul. This wouldn't be like the Herschel Walker trade, but it would have been at least something, a building block back for Ohtani. I don't think you would get that for Trout now. I honestly don't. Because he is, and again, this is not besmirching his talent, but he's on the wrong side of 30. He has trouble staying on the field. You're going to have to really have a long thought process of, is he going to become a DH? Should he be the DH?
Mm-hmm.
Should he take grounders at first? Should he move to left field? But I think playing one of the most physically demanding jobs as center field, look at, as a center fielder, he was for a little over a decade the best center fielder in baseball. He was the best offensive player in baseball as well, but he was also the best center fielder in baseball. But even Mickey Mantle moved away from, even Joe DiMaggio played first base eventually. I mean, at some point when your body keeps breaking down, you have to be you need to have that bat in the lineup. I think if you thought the Angels weren't going to get a lot for Ohtani, I think they would be getting pennies on the dollars for Trout, because they'd also have to pay a chunk of his contract. He's there. It's just basically they have 7 years to develop a team. They had 6 years to try to develop one around Trout and Ohtani, and they failed. And maybe, just maybe, this failure will force them to take everybody who's currently in the front office of the Angels and fire them.
I hope.
And go through every other. We had mentioned the Braves earlier. Go up and down their scouting department, their farm director, who's doing the conditioning in their minor leagues, and everyone who's the second banana at every one of those stops. Hire them all and say, here's your shot. And because whoever's in charge now, they couldn't put a winning team around Mike Trout and Shohei Ohtani.
No, we've seen that for a long time, them not being able to put the winning team around them. And for similar reasons to you, I agree the Angels shouldn't trade a Mike Trout away. It's not really having to do with his contract or age, but mostly because of just how the baseball market works when you trade star players. Because you can be a Mookie Betts in your prime, coming off an MVP World Series type season, and get traded for pennies on dollar. We saw it with the Nolan Arenados, the Paul Goldschmidts of the world. Like, you can be on the right side of 30, not even get the big contract yet, just be waiting in line to get the big contract and still be traded for pennies on dollar. At least in basketball, football, you trade a star quarterback, you trade a star player, you're getting every asset back that you want from the other team. That just doesn't happen in baseball. The gamble is just too big of a risk. So I think if I'm the Angels organization, it's just a lot smarter for me to keep a generational talent. Yes, he might be injury prone, like you said, but it's just, I think, a way smarter bet. If I'm really trying to build a playoff team or any kind of contender, it's easier to do that with a Mike Trout than just trading him for a bunch of roll of the dice. But if I am Mike Trout, because in the report, the Angels did say, if Mike Trout requested a trade, we will be open to moving him. And I think it's time. If I'm the Angels, I'm not moving Mike Trout. But if I'm Mike Trout, I am approaching the Angels about a trade. Yes, you might love LA, but you've been there for over 10 plus years. They've been nothing but dysfunctional throughout your whole time there. You've had another superstar teammate in the Shohei Ohtanis, and it still has meant nothing for you. If I'm Mike Trout, I think it's time to finally move out of Anaheim. You've done the whole, I'm the hometown kid. I took the long-term deal to stay with the franchise that groomed me and developed me. But guess what? The franchise hasn't rewarded you back. And maybe it's time to move to a team like them Desert Dogs down in Arizona.
Okay, well,
okay. I had to do that. I'm sorry. That was probably too much.
All right, yeah, that's not going to happen.
Imagine Carroll and Trout. I mean, Carroll is the first rookie to have like 30 home runs and 50 stolen bases since a Mike Trout. So having those two together would just be dynamic, right?
Where do you know who I think will trade from?
Who?
I was going to say the Dodgers. I think the Cubs.
I think that.
I think the Cubs. I think the Cubs would say it's worth a couple of prospects. And how beloved would he be in Chicago?
Yeah, I think it would fit what they're doing right now with the direction with Dansby Swanson. You bring back a Cody Bellinger. You lock in the Steels and the Stromans and you trade for Trout. I can see that. I can see that core all of a sudden starting to work, and then all of a sudden the Cubs being a year or two away from being a true contender out there.
I still don't think he's going to trade him. I still don't think they're going to trade him. I think they're going to appeal to him and say, look, we will put a winner on the field. You will win a ring in Anaheim, and you.
He has to demand a trade.
Yeah, I don't think he will. I don't think he will.
Have some backbone.
No, I don't think he will.
Sam did to Jock Peterson.
Sorry, come on. All right. By the way, let's answer the trivia question. The other day, it was the anniversary of Mark McGwire breaking the single-season home run record. It was also the anniversary of Babe Ruth breaking the single-season home run record in 1919. I asked, what was the number of home runs that Babe Ruth hit that set the new single season home run record in 1919. A bunch of you got this right. I can't. Jay, do you know what do you think it is?
I feel like, because I've looked at Babe Ruth stats before, and no one was hitting home runs back in the day for Babe Ruth. So I'm gonna go with like 37 or something. Like
I think it's Lit Lee 35-36. If I'm pronouncing this wrong, said in 1919, Babe Ruth hit his 26th home run.
Okay.
Off of Jack Quinn, breaking Buck Freeman's mark of 25 that was set in 1899, and he would finish the year with 29 home runs. The next year, Babe Ruth hit 54, which broke his own record. Very good job there. Good job.
Thanks. Oh, now I know it's time for me to step up and talk to our little listeners, because at the time of us recording this podcast, we like to record a day before. So it's Sunday right now. That means it's the start of the football season, and there's no app that I like to use more during the football season than my good old trusty Sleeper app, because you can do everything for both football and baseball on here, because with the MLB playoffs underway, you can make some baseball picks and win some money. They're doing up to 100 times payout on Sleeper. Pick a couple of players like Acuna, Betts, and Ohtani. They hit a home run. If they get a hit, you can win some big time money. And Sleeper is also great for fantasy football. Sully Baseball has the app pulled up right now. I got my Dynasty League on Sleeper. It archives all my players from year to year. You do your rookie draft on there as well. Sleeper, just a one-stop shop for fantasy sports, baseball, football, for making money. That's what I use Sleeper for. So please download the Sleeper app, use promo code Locked On, and you can get up to $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Please use promo code Locked On Sleeper.
All right, let's bounce around the league quickly. Two very weird games. Ranger Suarez took a no-hitter into the 7th inning, and then the Marlins rallied to wind up tying the game, and De La Cruz hit a home run, and eventually Miami won that game 5-4. To show the world that was only the second craziest game that was taken to be a no-hitter deep into the game, Corbin Burns threw 8 no-hit innings. And then was lifted in the 9th, and Williams threw a no-hit inning. And then the no-hitter went into the 11th inning. Brewers took the lead. Yankees tied it up. In the 12th inning, Brewers scored 2 runs. Stanton hit a 2-run home run. And then it went into the bottom of the 13th inning, and the Yankees, on only their 3rd hit in 13 innings, wound up winning the game 4-3 on a Kyle Higashioka hit. The Yankees avoided getting swept in a game where they were no hit into the 11th inning. The Yankees are still probably not going to make the postseason, but this was not a small loss for the Brewers. I didn't mind them pulling Burns out because it was still no score. You have an all-star closer, and they had to win that game because, sadly for you, the Diamondbacks could not complete the sweep of the Cubs. In what was a pretty exciting series. The Diamondbacks won 2 games in that series. 3 games. I'm sorry. They were going for the they're going for the 4-game sweep. That's right. They won on Thursday.
Dominated.
But yeah, anytime you go to anyone's home and you take the first 3 games, that's positive. And as of this recording, however, with the Diamondbacks loss and with Miami's unlikely win, the Marlins have crawled back to within half a game of that last wild card spot. The Reds' victory has pulled them within a game and a half. The Giants' victory pulled them within 2 games. But more importantly, the loss of the Brewers, a game where they had a no-hitter in the 11th, and the Cubs' victory has pulled the Cubs to within 3 games of first place in the National League Central. It's still a big hill to climb. It's 4 games back in the loss column. So that's a very big hill for the Cubs to climb, but it makes life a little more interesting. The Rangers came back, and thankfully for them, they actually won the series against the A's. It looked like for a second the A's were going to win that series. The Rangers won. the Mariners have picked the wrong time to go on a 3-game losing streak, which has pulled the Rangers back to within half a game, tied in the loss column for that final playoff spot. Toronto's been on a 3-game winning streak, so they're securing. They've gone from a week and a half ago being on the outside looking in to now they're the second wild card spot. And it would mean that I don't know if that's necessarily a good thing because they would have to play Tampa instead of Minnesota, but I digress. The Red Sox held their own in the game against the Baltimore Orioles. The Rays doubled up the Mariners 6-3. Harold Ramirez got the big hit in that. That was a day after a walk-off home run by Yandy Diaz. And the Dodgers showed their mettle, and they won again against the Washington Nationals. And that, I think, the Astros, by the way, the Astros are dusted themselves off after a couple of weeks ago when they didn't look. They were like, oh my God, are they going to potentially give up their spot in the playoff race after manhandling the Rangers in that series? They won again this time. Final score was 12-2, as my mom would say, a lot to not enough. And the Houston Astros have all but clinched the second best record in the American League. So there you go. That's a look around the league.
Wow. I just want to say beautiful series by the D-backs. We got a Gallen complete game shutout. Kelly, a lot of walks in his game 3 start, but still fantastic over 6 innings. And what's really fun about that series, because the Cubs and D-backs are about to play each other again, they take a quick break as the D-backs play the Mets, and then they have another 3-game series against the Cubs. And he just detailed how the Cubs are within striking distance of taking that NL Central. But the D-backs if the D-backs play the Chicago Cubs like they just played and potentially sweep them, there's a world where the Cubs don't even make the postseason.
Yes.
That wild card race, the team that scares me the most, we have to talk about this team a little bit more, but the Miami Marlins might have had the best trade deadline of any of these teams because Jake Berger and Josh Bell were 2 super underrated pickups. Bell is batting with a 800-plus OPS, almost double-digit home runs post-deadline, and Berger's another 800-plus OPS, 6 home run guy post-deadline. So those 2 dudes have been instrumental in this offense for the Marlins. Calling up Yuri Perez has been amazing. Their GM has just been pushing all the right buttons, and the Marlins are probably the team that scares me even more than the Chicago Cubs in this NL wildcard race.
Before we get to today's trivia question, this week is going to have – there is a Red Sox-Yankees series going on, and you could make the argument that might be the least interesting series happening at the beginning of this week. Because they're both – I mean, look at – they're both –
they're not playing for anything.
They're not – look at – the Red Sox are playing to get to finish above 500. So they have 10 – if they win 10 more games, they'll finish the season with a winning record. But there are a bunch of other games, including your D-backs against the Mets. But there's a couple of games coming up this week between – playoff contenders, Texas and Toronto. That has a lot of implications, especially for tiebreaker situations. The aforementioned Marlins with Luzardo going up against Woodruff, who was great his last game for the Milwaukee Brewers. You have also the Phillies and the Braves. Now, the Braves have clinched. The Phillies are hanging on for dear life, and they're playing a makeup game from a canceled game from either June or July. So they're going to be playing a doubleheader. So the Phillies, who are trying to secure that wild card berth, are going to be going against a Braves team who has every right to rest their players for the rest of the season. The Phillies, remember, the defending National League champions, are making a run at it. So it's been a great weekend of baseball. And should be an exciting look at. We are now in the stretch run. This is the final couple of weeks of the season. And, the difference between being a playoff team or playing golf is going to be a game here or a game there. So it should be a lot of fun.
Yeah. Quick shout out to me. 3 fantasy baseball leagues in the semifinals in all 3 of them. I'm just a stud. Just quick shout out to me.
Well, there you go. I've just shouted out to you. Okay.
Yeah.
We have talked about the Angels and their postseason futility. The trivia question is the Angels. Well, it's been a while since they've won even a single postseason game. Who got the save for the last game? The last postseason game the Angels ever won. And I'll give you a hint. He was not teammates with Mike Trout. So if you're playing the immaculate grid and him and Mike Trout are not going to meet because they did not play on that team. Actually, I have to look. He may have been. Now that I said it, he may have been a teammate with him later. Anyway, the point is, who got the save? Who was the last person to nail down a postseason win, not series, just a win for the Angels? That is our trivia question for today. Miller, tell people where they can listen to your show.
You can follow me on all streaming platforms. Follow me on Twitter at CareerThomas24 for my personal account. Look up Locked On Diamondbacks, both Twitter, Instagram for the podcast handle. And please hit subscribe on Locked On Diamondbacks on YouTube.
And you follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter and Instagram. Follow us here on YouTube. And I think that's pretty much it. All right, big week coming on here. It's Monday, and we're going to have some fun. For Millard Thomas of Locked On Diamondbacks, my name is Paul Francis Sullivan. Call me Sully. I'm the host of Locked On MLB. Let's fist pump for another week.